Hello and welcome to Pravus Gaming and EU4, the Cossacks playing as Russia. It is Sunday at the time that I will be recording this, and it is time to start another exciting week. Where did we leave off? I think we were going to declare war on Ardalan, is that correct? Yes, I do see some troops over here, so I think that would be good. We are currently fabricating a claim against them, because we do have access to the Caspian Sea. I can feed that claim off to Theodoro. Do we want to wait until this claim is done? Let's take a quick look at how Theodoro is doing. They only have one claim against them currently, and claims against a lot of other stuff over here. Feeding them the claim would be really good. It would kind of suck, though, if I got 10% of the way through my claim and they got discovered, and I was already kind of in the middle of a war, so I may wait just a little bit. I'm going to keep things down. I'm going to actually bump down to speed 3 while I talk and just kind of let the game run for a bit. And also, I think it is probably going to be good to rebuild some of my navy. I have 3 extra slots, so let's do that. Force limit is the actual terminology. So I saw a couple of comments in some previous videos. Whoop, of course, everything got recalculated. Lots of rivalries moving around. Sweden's doing fine. Persia and Bukhara are no longer rivaled. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, I saw some comments, some interesting suggestions and questions, so I will take a moment to address some of those, if that's all right. First off, trading in fur is gone. That sucks. And trading in copper and iron? What happened? Also, we have Swedish separatists. They finally arrived. Alright, let's make sure that some of our troops stop off in this direction. Get them all over here. Fortunately, that is a fort, so it's going to take its sweet time, and it is forest, which is a little less fortunate, but at least it's not mountains. Anyway, one suggestion I did see was to move my trade port into Danzig and the Baltic Sea trade node. An interesting idea. What the... Oh, we did finish unsieging this from the noble rebels. Okay. Interesting idea. I don't think it will work, and the reason I don't think that is because I tested it. I loaded the game, I tested it, then I reloaded the game, because this is not an Iron Man game, so I can afford to do some things like that. But I did test it, I moved my trading port, and the problem is that even though I have really good control over Novgorod currently, I do not have pretty much universal control over the White Sea. And what ended up happening was, even if I transferred control, even if I had, Danzig as my trading port, my fleet was trying to get trade power over here, 20-some ducats would flow out of Novgorod and into the White Sea, and I would go from about 31.5 ducats a month down to like 10. Now, I could counteract that by moving a merchant over here, and that would be a requirement, but the way I have things currently set up is my merchants are making sure that everything coming from the east is pretty effectively going up north. Not a lot of money going into the Crimea trade node. So there's like 2 ducats here that's going through to Constantinople, but most of it, as far as moving forward, is getting stopped here, which is pretty good. It's going up to Novgorod. That's one of the reasons Novgorod is a very valuable trade node right now. 19.6. It's better than Lubick. Not as good as, an end node like the English or Genoa, but still quite good. Also in Kiev, I'm making sure that money isn't going to Poland or to Europe. It's, again, 5 ducats. A good 5 ducats is getting steered up here, where I have, 95% control? So right now, that's profiting me quite a bit. I could move the merchant up here and try to transfer into the Baltic Sea, but then this money would probably go off to the Ottomans instead of going up north, so I would lose money there. And as well, I don't have as good a control over the Baltic Sea, so if I'm understanding correctly, my collection here would not be quite as effective. Some of the money would slip through my fingers and move on to Lubick. Whereas in Novgorod, where I'm currently collecting, I have very good control. So a lot of that money is staying here. So I don't think that moving into Danzig currently is the best idea. If I had a third merchant, I would be more willing to consider it. If I had more control of the Baltic Sea, I might consider it. But currently, I don't think so. Oh, look, we got our fur, copper, and iron back. That's cool. Anyway, so that's just one thing I wanted to address. Otherwise, a pretty good suggestion. I had thought about that. I had to do the test because I really couldn't tell just from doing the math, and it does cost 200 diplomatic power to move that, so I didn't want to lose that power just on an experiment and then move it back when it turned out it was terrible. And turns out, it's not going to work quite the way we had envisioned it would, so glad I checked that. But it's otherwise a good suggestion, appreciate that, and maybe I executed it wrong. I don't think I did, but if I did, then I'm sorry. I guess we'll just live with what we've got currently. Right now, trade is really good. And then I know that in my last video, There we go. That does deal with them pretty well. In my last video, I got a few questions from a viewer who's been trying to learn a bit about the game. And I'm really glad that people have been learning some stuff. I don't think I'm playing brilliantly. I'm not exactly the best EU4 player in the world, but I'm glad I can be of some help to some people. So that's awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying it. But he did have some interesting questions, which I think are worth addressing while we kind of get our army in position. Actually, I think at this point we can probably afford to declare the war. Ardaland, you are allied to Hejaz, and Khorasan would not even join you, and Hejaz is pretty small. I'm not worried about it. Yeah, we'll go ahead and declare this. Wait a minute. What's this? War goal. I have military access through them. That would be really bad. Glad I checked that. Let's go ahead and cancel that military access. I really do want to hand this claim off to Theodoro, but I can give them... Well, no. I'm actually going to wait. I'm going to wait. It's fine. I'll just address these questions. We're not in a huge rush right now. It's fine. So he had a few questions. I'm going to try to remember them the best I can. One of the things he asked was about manufactories. Honestly, I don't generally work with manufactories that much. I don't usually think that they are worth it. It depends. As with everything, it does depend. Manufactories, with my inflation, currently cost 518 ducats. It would be 500, but inflation being what it is what it is. What they do is they increase a trade good provided in that particular province. So if I wanted to build one, for example, in Dalaskogan, which has a copper... we have Theodoro Pretender rebels. And we are already fighting them on full maintenance. Not a problem. Dalaskogan has a really good trade good of copper. 4.5 ducats is the value. We could increase the amount of copper produced. And that goes through the various different modifications and different bonuses and so on, but the production value would go up. I'd get more money out of Dalaskogan. Now, if I did that, Dalaskogan, let's say this manufactory for weapons manufactory, would increase my monthly income by about 0.26. That's how much I would get. 0.26 times 12 is 3.12, so I'm seem to be getting some sort of negative effects, probably from my autonomy, which is why I'm not getting as much money out of this copper, but either way, it would give me about, let's just round it up and say to 0.3 extra ducats per month. But it would cost me 500 ducats in order to build that. That's my upfront cost. So 500 divided by 0.3 would be 1,667 months, or about 139 years before that manufactory would be able to pay for itself. Ooh, look, we just got a lot of culture conversion. That's going to be nice. Lots of extra taxes and so on for me. Woo-woo! Anyway, so it takes a very long time for it to pay for itself. And that's Dalaskogan with a really good trade good. Granted, as the autonomy goes down, it'll get better, but still, that's a pretty steep price for not a lot of reward. Whereas in contrast, if I were to build, let's say, temples here, for example, typically when I'm building one, I'm looking for at least 0.1 ducats. So here's 0.16, for example. That's actually quite good. I'm going to build these because I didn't notice those, but those are really good because we've increased the development in some of those. At 0.16 for 103 ducats, that's going to be what? I want to say 644 months, I think. So that's equivalent to about 50, let's just round up and say 54 years. So 54 years before it pays off, as opposed to well over 100 years for manufactory. To that extent, the churches, the temples, will pay for themselves much sooner than manufactories were, which is generally why I don't bother with these. Even with a really good trade good, I just don't think that they're that much worth it. Whereas I could build a workshop. Holy crap! Okay, here's a good example of something. Workshop, Dalaskogan, 0.62. So 103 degrees. Now I'm going to pull out my calculator because I don't feel like doing math. This is insane. 103 ducats divided by 0.62 ducats per month is going to be only 14 years before it pays off. That's great. That is one of the best provinces I have ever seen for a workshop. Holy crap. Glad I was checking this stuff. But yeah, so that's a really good return rate and return on investment. And over the course of the game, it will pay for itself. I mean, the game is a good couple hundred years or so, like 300 years. So there's plenty of opportunity for Dalaskogan's production workshop to pay for itself and be a overall plus. Manufactories, not as obvious, and that's why I tend not to bother with them. So I'm not sure if that really is going to answer your question. I'm not even sure exactly what the question was, but I know you brought those up, so I figured I'd just go ahead and address it. Let's actually go ahead and take a look at some other stuff here, because why not? I'm already doing it. The second question I think that was asked was about, well, I don't know if it was a question as much as a point, but that I could be a bit more proactive with my state assignment. And that is completely true. Mostly the reason that I haven't is because I've been a little bit on the lazier side of kind of sorting through all the provinces that would benefit from those estate changes. So the idea, of course, is that if you hand off, let's say, an estuary to the burghers, like Danzig, then I would gain, let's say, additional local trading power, of which we have a estuary and a coastal center of trade. So I would get a lot of extra trade power in Danzig for doing that. Now, the thing you have to remember, though, is if you hand these off, you do get an increased minimum autonomy from 0 to 25. So if I did that, instantly my autonomy would go from 0 to 25. I would lose taxes. I would lose manpower. They did change it, I think, so that as long as the burghers are loyal, the effects of autonomy would not apply to the production and the trade power. So there is that, I suppose. I don't know. It's not as obvious, I think, as to whether or not it is worth being proactive. I've typically just been dealing with them kind of on a need basis. If the estates are throwing a ruckus, then I'll deal with them as needed. Of course, I could just give them, that stuff for the extra influence, which is not necessarily a bad thing either. So let's just for the sake of argument, let's take a look at Danzig, because if there's any province I want to give to the burghers to be proactive, it's Danzig, right? Since I'm not going to make it my trading port for now. Currently, I'm making 0.78 ducats per month in taxation. I have a manpower of 743 and production of 0.53, trade power of 48. Goodness, it's quite good. All right, so let's hand it off to the burghers. Now, this is going to remove the local autonomy for local production efficiency, trade power, and naval force limit, which is not here anyway because we have 0 autonomy. So no changes there, but we're going to lose taxes and manpower, but our local trade power will increase by 50%. So, let's see what happens. Bam. Okay, I just lost. It was 0.78. Now it's down to 0.59, so I just lost 0.19 ducats per month. The trade power of the region should go up. My production was unchanged, and I did lose a couple hundred manpower. That's not a huge deal. The question now is, did the increased trade power, is that going to result in better trade for me? And it did, actually, by almost a ducat. That could be due to a few different varying factors, but that being said, that seems to be fairly worth it for me. So with the burghers, yeah, giving them off to estuaries, at least from this one preliminary test, seems to be worthwhile. I'm not going to hand off anything ever to the boyars, because I don't need manpower. I don't see any good reason to lose money from... Oops, we should kill these guys. I don't see any good reason to lose money in taxes and production to get more manpower. I have a lot of freaking manpower. Improvements in government technology. Oh, yeah, absolutely, we're going to do that. Not a doubt. So, yeah. The clergy would probably be worth handing off really good base tax provinces as well. Probably. Whether we decide to do that, I don't know. It's a lot easier to determine if the burghers are going to be good for that or not, because it's kind of easy to look for an estuary and just decide, okay, that's worth handing off. It's not as obvious for the taxes. You really have to kind of sort through your provinces for that, but still. Okay, let's get these ships together. We can actually invest in some new tech, military tech, which I don't think we need right now, but that is interesting. We can keep that in our back pocket if we need to. We're going to continue to trade in Novgorod because that's worked out really well for us thus far. Pretty soon, though, I think we're going to want to start splitting up my navy between the Baltic Sea and Novgorod just to keep the downstream trade power really strong here. Anyway, let's see. What else did you ask? Oh, you had a good question about obsolete forts. I don't really know for sure the answer. I'm pretty sure that obsolete forts do still give you some army tradition, but I don't think it is as much as a up-to-date fort. As long as it is active, I think you do get some army tradition, but not as much as a up-to-date fort. And we are going to, at some point, want to start deleting forts and start building new ones in strategic locations. And as long as we're up-to-date, we'll get the full advantage of army tradition, which right now we have been kind of lacking on. There's our claim. I'm going to hand that off to Theodoro right now. Grant claim on this one. Thank you. And by any chance, have you been getting any new claims? You did. You actually got a third claim. Perfect. Now I want to start this war. This is exactly what I want to see. And Khorasan would join now. Unfortunate, but okay. And we cannot do Deus Vault, so we're going to need to siege these down right away. We're going to take Yerevan because it's an easier war goal, and we don't have military access, so no negative stability for me. Good. Let's go ahead and park this army here. Actually, does anyone have siege value? Yes, you do. So we're going to move you here. We're going to move you here and you here. Let's get those all sieged down real quick. Get the mountains, the drylands, and whatever else. Actually, forget the drylands here in Melekats. Let's grab the mountainous province and fort of Tabriz. Tabriz, whatever. Anyway, so that's a good question. And we are going to need to deal with forts. I've mostly not been dealing with it, mostly because of a money issue. Forts are expensive to build. And deleting them would save me some maintenance cost for, you know, very little lost army tradition. So it probably is worthwhile, honestly, to get rid of some of these obsolete forts, especially over here where there's way too many. But I am going to want to rebuild some at some point, no doubt about it. So that's a good question. That is something I should deal with, and I probably will in the near future. Let's go ahead and improve relations with our allies, Poland and Bohemia, for a little while, since I got nothing better to do with my diplomats. The other question you asked was whether it was possible to overfeed a vassal so that you could not annex them. Not as far as I am aware. I believe, first off, in order to get a vassal diplomatically, they have to have, I think, less than 100 development. If you're going to conquer them and force them to become a vassal, then they needed to have less than 100% war score in order to vassalize. I'm pretty sure those are the only requirements there. As far as when you'll be able to diplomatically annex them, I do not think there is a size requirement. You can make them as large as you want, and, you know, it'll cost more to... Oh, hang on, let's take a look at our states. It'll cost more to diplomatic power, and it'll take longer to annex them, obviously, but as far as I'm aware, it is not going to hurt you... That's a diplomat. It's not going to hurt you for size. Like, you'll never reach a point where you're not allowed to, I think. What is the requirement here? They need to have better influence. Of course, it's going to take... Yeah, I'm not going to be able to give them that much influence. No, it's not going to happen. All right, sorry, got distracted for a second there. Yeah, make them as big as you want. Not a problem. Here's where the downside comes in, and there is sort of, I guess, a soft cap on how big they can be. That is... Oh, that's what I was doing. I was filling my coffers so that I would win a mission. Oops. If they get so large that they have over 50% liberty desire, you are not allowed to annex them. The requirements for annexation are 190 relations and less than 50% liberty desire. The larger they get, the stronger they get. Relative to you, the higher their liberty desire gets. So there is technically a point where if you make them so large they have really high liberty desire, then you will not be able to annex them. So that is, I guess, sort of a cap, but it's not a hard cap like if they're past 1,000 development, you're not allowed to annex them, period. As far as I'm aware, that does not exist. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, I hope somebody will correct me, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on that one. Let's go ahead and move our armies up this direction to intercept, because we have an army moving this direction. They are so much weaker than me as far as technology. They are a good 3 tech levels behind me. I could make it 4 right now if I want to. We should be able to stomp them even without a general. Not an issue. Let's go ahead and move this guy. I can't move forward until we siege down these forts. Never mind. All right. But yeah, so that's a good question. I had to look that up on the EU4 wiki. That's actually a really good resource if you do have questions about some of the mechanics. Going to the Europa Universalis IV wiki will answer a lot of those questions, so I would recommend doing so. You can look up the direct mechanics yourself. But I hope that answers your questions. I appreciate people asking some questions because this is a great game, and I'm glad that people are looking forward to learning more about it. Of course, then again, everything is subject to change. By the time you're watching this video, and I don't mean like next week, I mean, let's say several months down the road, someone finds this series and wants to start watching it, then it's entirely possible that, you know, the next expansion has come out and things have changed. I mean, who really knows, right? Who really knows? But which they did announce, by the way. What was it? Dos Nostrum or something like that? I don't know. There's a new expansion that's been announced. I don't know when it's going to come out, but should be interesting. We'll talk about that another time, I guess, though. These guys are trying to get around me. I'm not going to let that happen. Absolutely not. All right, cool. We did, however, finish with this episode because it has been our allotted time, so I'm going to call it here. Thank you guys for watching. I know this is mostly just answering questions, but we're going to continue to fight this war. We're going to expand Theodora a little bit more because it's not going to hurt us too much. And maybe, just maybe, it would be worth me picking up a province, let's say, down here, so that I would be able to do Deus Vult against Persia or Tabaristan. I'm considering that. I'm not entirely sure if it's worth it or not. We'll see. Could be. I'll have to think about it. In the meantime, thank you for watching. This has been Pravus. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And I, as always, will see you guys next time.